to another episode of Business Bites. This is a special episode for us, kind of a first in the whole pantheon of Business Bites episodes. We have our first international guest with us. Mr. Ewan Reid is joining us from Amsterdam. So, Ewan, welcome. And why don't you, if you're willing to, give us a quick overview of the Ewan Reid story. I'm sensing from your accent that you're not an Amsterdam native, so maybe kind of take us through the beginning to how you got where you are today perspective.
Sure. Yeah. As people will probably guess fairly rapidly, I was born in Scotland. Still am Scottish, actually. I moved to Paris in France when I was 23, actually, 1994, dare I say it. I spent some time there doing, what 24-year-olds do, which is drinking beer, and I worked for a moving company and all that kind of stuff. Always loved computers, was pretty good at them in school, probably one of the few things I was good at. So after a few years in Paris, I decided, I should start up my own little IT company. Around about the same time, that's when DSL was kind of coming into its own in France, which meant, you could start supporting companies remotely. You didn't have to go there every single time they had an issue. So yeah, I did that for about 6 years, I think, in Paris, and then 2004/2005. I moved up to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I opened Utilis, my current company, and we're now 21 years old, I think, just about 10 days ago, 15 days ago. So yeah.
Out of curiosity, just because geographically in the United States, we kind of, we're skewed a little bit in our distances and time. So how far is Amsterdam from Paris? If you were to drive it, out of curiosity, how far?
It's 500 kilometers.
Oh, okay.
Which means nothing to you guys unless you're Canadian, I guess. 310 miles and 68, whatever that is. So 310 miles, basically.
Right. Yeah. So it's
roughly,
just kind of like driving across the state. So but it's interesting for me to understand that just the distances involved and how much different it is. When a customer comes to you and they say, well, I have all these things going on. I have people working in disparate locations and different groups doing things. I really need to find a way to collaborate. Yeah. When the customer says that to you, what's your reply back to them? How do you answer that? And they can't really necessarily articulate the question that they're trying to ask, right? They know they need something. They don't know what it is. How do you help them down the path and maybe bring teams into their fold from a business perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, bringing teams into is very, very simple, really. When you talk to them, when you talk to clients and you say, okay, you're going to have everything online in the cloud, the first thing they say is, yeah, but how's it going to be organized? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? You can go into the tech talk, the IT guy talk of saying, okay, you're going to have a SharePoint site for this, for your HR, you're going to have it for admin, you're going to have it for operations, etc., etc., etc. They don't necessarily see it that way. You're trying to get them away from the traditional server on premises where they have a share which is called admin or operations or whatever. And Teams really allows you to push the whole collaboration within your team because you're in the team called operations or admin or whatever it is that you actually need. So I think a lot of clients, when we talk to them about it, we really try to approach it from that point of view, to say, okay, you're building your whole infrastructure around actual physical living teams that you have of people, of team members. That's why it's called Teams, and that really goes over well with the clients. It seems to be the kind of eureka moment for them where they understand that, okay, yeah, this is what I need.
Right. When customers come to you, do they know what they're asking for, or what's your experience with that? Or do you find that most customers need guidance in figuring out what they want, what they need for collaboration tools?
Most of them need guidance because there's
Mhm.
such a plethora of tools out there.
They kind of have
Um,
a sniff of what they need, but they don't really they need help zeroing in on it. I
yeah,
hear you saying, yeah.
I mean, if you're a business owner or a stakeholder in a business, Google's going to pick up on that, or whichever big,
Hmm.
etc. It's going to jump in there and it's going to start saying, "Hey, how about this tool? Collaboration tool, whatever, CRM tool, etc., etc." So I think there's quite a lot of kind of an overbearing kind of, okay, all these tools that
Hmm.
are available. So people know that they want to have a better CRM system, they want to have a better organization of their data, but they have so many options. It's very
Hmm.
difficult for them,
Hmm.
and they can get very easily to the stage of oversaturated, and then it goes the other way where they're like, I can't be bothered with this any longer, and we'll just do it this way. And yeah, then they end up with a system that's not
Hmm.
really adapted for them. So we really sit down with them and say, okay, let us just let us
Right.
take that part of that heat off of you. Tell me what you want in your terms. We'll think about it. We'll
Hmm.
translate it. We'll come back to you again. If we're not 100% sure, we'll have another discussion. If it takes a week, 2 weeks, it doesn't matter, because this is something that you're going to have in your business, not for the next 2 months. You're going to have it for the next 2 years, 10 years, maybe 20
Hmm.
years. It's a way forward that we like to think about. And then clients really, it gets them to relax, and you can have proper discussions with them without throwing a
Hmm.
whole load of product names at them.
Well, all kinds of questions bounce around in my head. If a customer comes to you, and I've had this experience, if a customer comes to you, and maybe they're using a Google product for email, let's say, and they're using maybe a Slack product for messaging, and kind of they have kind of a patchwork quilt
Yeah.
of tools in their business right now, and maybe they've come to you with something that is a collaboration tool, but isn't necessarily part of Teams, and they're asking you questions. Do you find it, or do you find that an opportunity to say, "Hey, have you thought about folding this all together in one kind of more coherent solution?" Do you ever have those talk tracks? Do you ever have those experiences with customers? We kind of illustrate for them the value of having a kind of a simplified technology stack.
Absolutely. In fact, I had a call today and set up an appointment with somebody for next week who is pretty much in that situation. He has Google for some data and email, but he also has SharePoint, he has Teams, he
Hmm.
has, you name it. He's kind of spread all over the place. So we didn't get into it too far because I want to sit down face to face and have a chat with them. But yeah, definitely, I'm sure I'm going to find he's got a CRM system here, maybe another one over there, etc., etc. So yeah, we absolutely do have those conversations. Um, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to make a decision and go with the systems that are going to best suit you. Um, I'm not saying nobody should ever use Google. We're not a Google shop. We
Hmm.
probably never will be. We're Microsoft. There's a very good reason behind that because it just is a
Hmm.
very, very good. The entire ecosystem is
Hmm.
fantastic, despite a few flaws everywhere. But every software has that. So we can really then sit down with the client and say, that whole tech sprawl you have, getting them to understand that you're maintaining this and this and this. We won't do that as an IT company, as your MSP. And they might look at it and say, well, you don't want us as a client then? We would at that point say, not in the situation you are at the moment, because we want to
Hmm.
elevate you by taking you to here, which
Hmm.
means that we can look after you well, but more importantly, you can do business much better in a much
Hmm.
more uniform manner. And again, that's quite a showstopper for them. And they're like, okay, hold on, this guy doesn't want to work with me because of what I've got at the moment.
Hmm.
Wow, okay. And it's not you're not putting them down. You're just saying to them, there's a better way to do this, and we want to take you through that journey. That's really
Yeah.
important, I think.
Makes them draw a pause and think about it a little bit, kind of reframes the
Yeah.
conversation. What would you say is the number one or the main problem, or what's the chief problem that you're kind of asked to solve when a business comes to you? Just kind of in general, not nothing official, but just in general, what do you think is the biggest business problem you're asked to solve?
I think probably the biggest business issue problem that we're asked to solve is something that a lot of business owners are maybe not even aware of, and that's the fact that they're not allowing their technology actually to drive their business. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really an incredibly important thing. They see IT as a cost center, or just as a
Mm-hmm.
cost. In fact, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to
Mm-hmm.
have IT, because otherwise we can't run the business.
Right.
That is
How
something
how do you
that we
make
see a
that
lot of.
conversation more consumable to them? Because one of the things I find is like a lot of times decision makers don't want to talk about technology. They don't enjoy talking about it, but yet they consume it, right? Their business consumes
Absolutely,
it.
yeah, yeah,
So how do you help pivot that to a conversation where their eyes don't glaze over and you can
glaze
start talking
over.
about the real value of the technology driving their business?
Yeah, the way we do that is we take the technology out of it. They need the technology. I know they need the technology. They probably know they need the technology, uh, but they don't want to particularly know how it's working. They just want to know that it's actually going to do something for their business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take the whole technology side of things out of it and say to you, okay, what are your goals in 6 months, a year, 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
3, 5, 10? What are your goals? Then you can sit back and say, okay, how are we going to achieve that? How
Mm-hmm.
is your finance department going to achieve that? Now,
Mm-hmm.
why would an IT guy be asking that? How's my finance department going to achieve that? Well, I'll have to sit down and talk to them, and have a discussion with them about it. I said, okay, well, that's exactly what we need to do then for
Mm-hmm.
IT as well, because
Mm-hmm.
that is a very big part of you getting to your goal in 2 or 5 or 10 or whatever years.
Right.
So taking the technology out of it and actually saying to them, okay, we're talking about your goals. We're not talking about the specific cogs and wheels that are actually driving it. We'll get into that later, but then you need to do this for every single department in your company. And at that point, you can kind of pivot as well and say to them, technology is going to be a part of that in every single part of your company.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you can get more into the technology talk. But at the end of the day, they're not interested really about, are we going to use Teams, or are we going to use this or the other? As long as it's systems that work and drive their business and their roadmaps and their goals forward, that's the important thing.
Right. Right. Just in general, as you kind of think about the engagements you've done and maybe some of the engagements you have on your horizon, how often, in my experience, it's almost we have to, sometimes the business owner wants to add water, have collaboration, right? They could just put a little dropper in and we're going to install a program and now everyone can collaborate. How often, or do you encounter the case where actually there's a kind of a foundational build up, whether it's like, you have to get their Active Directory in place and have to kind of get these foundational pieces in place? Do you find that often, or are places that work with you kind of ready to go, ready to just implement Teams or Microsoft 365?
It can be very varied. It really can be very
Mm-hmm.
varied. I would say that most businesses that we work with now, even if we're going in cold, they have something set up.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably hazard a guess that if they haven't had any regular sort of care from an MSP, it's going to be fragmented. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
tech sprawl, tech debt, shadow IT, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, as an example, I think a really good one is we took over looking after our client in about 2016, and they're kind of consultancy bureau for the European Commission over here, and they actually had a consultant of theirs who worked for them, who could probably have been charged 800 euros a day at that time, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even more. He was looking after their IT, and they actually came to us because they found out he was doing like a day a week looking
Mm-hmm.
after their IT. And I was like, okay, so he's probably doing then in that case a lot more than that. And yeah, it's like, okay, I can come in, I can do that for you. We have a lot more experience, with all respect to your contractor. If people are sick in my company, it doesn't matter to you because I've got somebody else to replace them. Holidays doesn't matter, somebody else to replace them. We're always going to be there looking after you.
And one of the questions that I'm wondering about, so you have broad exposure to Teams and you've been implementing it, and it's actually changed in the last few years. What parts of Teams right now are you excited about? I mean, they keep rolling out new things, but within the Teams tool set, is there something about the product set that has you excited right now that you're really interested in?
Yeah, sure. Copilot, of course. Yeah. What else am I going to say? Everybody's jumping on the Copilot wagon, the AI wagon. One of the things with Copilot that definitely for me, in a more managerial role within my organization, something that is definitely worth I think it's €30 per month over here, is Copilot with Facilitator in Teams meetings.
And what is a facilitator? What is that?
Facilitator is basically somebody who's sitting there getting all the details of the meeting together. So you go into the meeting, I'll say, okay, we're here today, and I'm going to be.
Keith's in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, they might be able to do it well, but they are nowhere near as good looking. So there's that.
I was say, you can replace Keith. He's still my heart.
I didn't say that. Not directly. But I mean, Facilitator along with Copilot. Obviously, Copilot's doing all the transcription, and it's looking at stuff. How it all works in the background, I don't really know. I'm not an expert on those things. But what I do know is that since we started using it for our meetings, we're essentially getting very good meeting notes, which you can edit because sometimes it gets names wrong. A couple of other things wrong. What it does is it starts putting out tasks. So I'll say, okay, Ewan said that he was looking at this, but he needed Keith's help, and they're going to schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning. So that's going to come up as a task. And then basically what you need somebody within the meeting that's going to sit there, go through the tasks at the end, or everybody can go through the tasks and choose and say, okay, we're going to assign this one to Keith and Ewan. So it's kind of like the traditional Copilot on steroids, I guess.
With that being said, one of the things that I hear a lot of buzz about and get questions about is, Copilot and the kind of fear around securing an organization's data. Can you, for lack of a better way to describe it, and I'm a rube in this regard, but can you isolate Copilot to your business, to that business's tenant, or how does that work from a security perspective? So my business information doesn't go out into the larger zeitgeist of the AI world,
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't read right into the terms and conditions of Microsoft because I'd be a lot older than I am currently. Once I got finished reading, I think one of the benefits of Copilot is, I mean, you'll quite often see, probably shouldn't name any names, but Fireflies. Right. How many of these AI note takers do you see? Clients ask me about that.
They're all over the place now.
Clients ask me about that kind of stuff, and I always say to them, if you go into a meeting and you see a third-party AI note taker, the first thing you should do is leave, because you don't know what's where's that data going to be stored? Is it going to be stored in the US? Is it going to be stored in Europe? Depending on where you want to be or where you should be, then it obviously makes a difference. The thing with Copilot obviously is, from your own organization's point of view, yes, it's going to be stored within your tenant, your own Microsoft 365 tenant. So there's no chance of data leakage just from Copilot sitting, listening, doing a transcript of a meeting. Obviously, there's a lot more involved in the whole Copilot and AI within Microsoft 365. There's some fantastic blog posts out there. I've forgotten the gentleman's name who did one a few months ago about how to actually check your tenant, for example, to make sure that you're not exposing data that HR data that people shouldn't be seeing. But that's going a bit further, I think, than what we're talking about at the moment. But essentially, Copilot is within your M365, and by nature, contained within that whole tenant, that whole environment ecosystem.
I think it's a very interesting thing about Copilot is the ability to kind of limit the throw, if you will, of company data out into the universe, and I think that's an important thing that people are now starting to think of more and more. They weren't, a long time they weren't doing that, and kind of you had mentioned earlier ghost IT, and maybe there's a ghost AI out there where people were just kind of having free accounts and throwing company information out into the wind and not really thinking about it. And now there's that pulling back, and organizations providing Copilot licenses for their people is a very important part in securing the data. Because, like, if I'm understanding, again, I'm a rube, from Wisconsin, so I do the best I can. But of course, you're an Amsterdam, so you don't know where Wisconsin is. Maybe I don't know.
No, I know. I'll be visiting somebody in the States a few weeks.
Really?
Who comes from Wisconsin?
Very nice. You obviously are a man of high morals, fiber, and great taste. I don't know. We were just talking security, and now it's all gone. So we did the Wisconsin segue, so I forgot all about it. But I think that that concept has coming more to the forefront of the importance of security and the value of Microsoft 365, in that it follows with those foundational things that are laid forward in Active Directory, correct?
Yeah.
So if there's something that's happening at maybe an executive conversation, whatever, or these things that are happening at maybe a higher elevated privilege level, the Copilot component of that is able to leverage information in Active Directory to kind of control that access, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you have Purview as well, Microsoft Purview, which data loss prevention, etc. I have to say, I'm by no means an expert on that. We have definitely people who can who can help us with that. But baked into your business premium licenses, for example, you do have already Microsoft Purview. It's a little bit of a cut down version, but it's still, you can go through it, and you can implement definitely policies and standards.
Right. Well, you could go to the zoo and throw a bunch of instruments in the monkey cage, and they'll all play them. But when you're and when you go with a tool like the Microsoft 365 suite, it's more like a symphony, right? Because if you're doing it the other way, you have to figure out, how does this tool work with this tool, work with that tool, and how do I protect this, how do I protect that? With the Microsoft suite, while you still need to contemplate those things, the tools, methods, and means are there to more tightly integrate, right? So that those components are part of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think because Microsoft is so pervasive, then I mean, learn.microsoft, docs.microsoft, whatever it is, the URL these days to actually get to all the documents, they're of fairly high quality. But because you have such Microsoft pretty much everywhere, if you ask a question, on Reddit or in a forum somewhere, the chances that somebody is going to know how to fix that problem is pretty high up there, I think.
Yeah. So, what else are you excited about within the Teams environment? There's some new, interesting voice capabilities that are part of Teams. What can you offer in that space that maybe people don't know about?
I mean, there's I get quite excited about these things. They're little things, but the reason I get excited about it is because I use Teams a lot for meetings, talking to people, and I know my clients, for example, I know what their pain points are as well. So, for example, it's been a few months now actually, but the Microsoft introduced voice isolation, which essentially is something you have to train once within Teams.
What is that?
It captures your voice. It captures the way you talk, your intonations, etc., etc. And from but, it basically it filters out the noise. So you've got the standard background. I can't remember what it's called, background filter or something like that. And then you've got voice isolation.
So, like 5 minutes ago, when my dog was barking in the background, it would cut that out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
That's exactly it. And what I've found as well when you're using, I mean, I finally found a pair of earbuds,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jabra, I think, um, which I put in here, and I can actually have a meeting because
Mm-hmm.
my voice is isolated enough. Whereas before, it was all over the
Right.
place. I mean, it's
No,
fantastic.
is that native? Is that native
It's
within
native,
Teams
absolutely.
now?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Okay.
absolutely native. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Well, so my background is in call centers and voice and telephony and all that stuff. So for
yeah,
a voice wonk like me, that's kind of cool stuff, to be honest with you.
yeah. Absolutely.
Obviously, I have the big Pilot to Navigator headset on, so
Yeah. I was walking about at home today with my headset on, and my wife was playing or trying to play the new piano we just purchased. And I thought, oh, hold on, I shouldn't go in there but nobody could hear it. They could only hear me. It's it's it's
that's
pretty amazing.
that's pretty amazing, actually.
It's a small thing that's really nice for people who are on the move, business leaders, business owners, stakeholders that are really moving around the place. It's just a simple thing that can make their life really kind of like I don't have to worry any longer that I'm sitting in a busy train or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
Or in a restaurant. I do a lot of remote work and I make client sites and things like that. So I like to say I work from every coffee shop in town, and having
yeah,
a way to isolate that voice versus all the background stuff that's for me that's an important
yeah,
thing. Very
yeah.
handy tool. All right. As we kind of wind down a little bit, I would ask you to think about for a minute what would you say is kind of the number one reason, or what, not even number one, but what's a very important reason or a good reason that a business might want to go if they're kind of struggling through what should I do, G Suite, this, that, the other thing, all these other tools. If they're struggling through that, what would be something you could say that would kind of help them kind of maybe look at the Microsoft 365 or the Teams environment more closely?
Yeah. I think if somebody's struggling with making the decision on Microsoft 365 or Google, the first thing they should do is seek professional help, if I can say that. Yeah, in a good way. In a good way.
In a good way. I actually kind of like that line.
Yeah.
I think seek professional help.
Yeah.
That feels like
I
a
mean,
T-shirt. That feels like a shirt we should have made up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The way I always look at it is, are you going to try and do your finances, your company accounts yourself? No, you're going to go and get a qualified accountant to do that. So really, if you're struggling thinking about it, then make sure that you talk to the right person or the right people even. It can be other business owners, etc. To go back a little bit more to the core of your question, why should you use Microsoft 365? I think it's just the ecosystem is just fantastic. It's huge. It's wide. If you purchase Microsoft Business Premium, for example, where it's about $20 a month, probably over there, there's an enormous amount of stuff in there. I don't know what else to call it. It's just there's so many things in there. Defenders baked in, your spam, you're checking links if you're in Teams, email. There's global secure access, which has just come out, it's maturing, etc. It's such a all-encompassing system that you can really
and
run everything from.
You can start this big.
Exactly.
And as you need things, you can turn on licenses and do this.
Yeah.
And where if you're working with third-party products, you're not just doing this. What you're doing is it's kind of, I describe it as like when you're a little kid and you used to have the gum on the bedpost, you put another piece of gum on there. Because if you're doing those third-party apps, now not only do you have to select the app, but now you got to integrate it and you got to handle it with kind of do the implementation piece of it. So there's all these things that you have to bolt on to this tool that may or may not work the way you want it to work. Where, like I said, with the Microsoft 365 piece and kind of the whole ecosystem, you turn on a license and then it's there, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I see is a lot of times when organizations are doing the piecemeal approach, and maybe they're trying to do it for different purposes, maybe frugality is one of them, but by the time you count the integration and implementation costs, they've actually spent more money on that tool that maybe costs less from a licensing perspective, but it's been way more from an implementation perspective. So that's really got to come into your calculations when you're doing a business case around, which collaboration business tool should I be using?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole total cost of ownership. It's a great, it's I love those three letters, but they're so true.
Right.
Something that's free can cost you a
Yeah.
lot more than something
Is it
you're
really?
paying $20 a month for.
Right. Right.
I mean, there's so many aspects to it. If you even look at security, if you're piecing stuff together, yeah, you have a single login via Entra to your Microsoft 365. You can lock it down to say, okay, because Keith is in Amsterdam this week, then he has to do a double MFA, or he can't even get into the system, or he can only get into our base systems because you've got all your SaaS apps behind SSO,
It's weird.
behind Entra. Yeah.
If I were to go to Amsterdam, mine tells me that I need to submit a drug test, a blood test for. So I never tell Paul when I'm in Amsterdam. It's just.
No, I wouldn't. I won't tell him either. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't tell him. If I show up there, if there's a fat guy with red hair knocking on your door, don't tell Paul.
Yeah, what I would say is, if you come to Amsterdam, you probably won't be working in coffee shops, because that has a different meaning over here.
Really? Well, maybe
I will buy coffee there, but you can buy other stuff as well. So yeah, maybe you know me. I don't know.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I don't want you to get into trouble.
Well, trouble has a way of finding me, so it's not really a problem. Anyway, very good. Well, any last thoughts? I mean, Ewan, because you're in Amsterdam, so it's a little hard to throw customers your way in that regard. But do you have any social media presence, or if do you blog posts or anything like that if people wanted to follow you? Or
Yep, absolutely. Trying to think, I guess it's linkedin.com/Ewan M. Reid, I believe. I guess we can put that up at some point in the podcast.
Yeah, I'll put it up. I'll put it up on the screen. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I try and do some decent posts, things like voice isolation, that kind of stuff. A little bit kind of business leadership, how to get on, how to get better with doing things, which is also a learning curve for me. I'm 55 this year, but I'm still learning as well.
I like to call us gentlemen of our stature well seasoned.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, like a fine wine or a stinky cheese, we get better with age.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So, well, in any case, thank you very much for your time today, Ewan. Really enjoyed meeting you. Yeah. Great conversation. So, take care, sir.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Bye-bye.
That'll do, donkey, that'll do.